Hey guys, John here from Bring the SEO. Today I wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you. Um, these were, these are a collection of thoughts that I've put together in order to try and share with you what I've learnt having worked with hundreds of SEO consultants over the years. Look, I've been doing SEO for a very long time and focused over the last 3 or 4 years on training and mentoring and private coaching. And through that experience, I've gained some really great insights and also a very deep understanding of a lot of the problems and issues that many or most SEO consultants faced. And there are definitely patterns, right? There are definitely patterns in the problems that they're facing. And these 10 points that I've put together today that I want to share with you will help you, right? Hopefully help you in your journey. If you're an SEO consultant, you're providing SEO services to clients. I've put these together in an effort to not only share my thoughts, but sort of give you something to think about at the very least. Now, I know there's 1,000,001 of these types of videos on YouTube, and I'm sure that perhaps some of these points I'm about to touch on have been covered before, but these are a collection of the things that I think are probably the most important, at least from what I've seen over the last number of years working with SEO consultants. Anyway, so having said all of that, let's jump into it. The first point I want to make is do less, not more. And by that I mean, take a look at the services that you're providing. Okay, take a look at the services that you're providing and find the one thing that's bringing in all the money. Now, this might sound like fairly obvious advice, but this is a huge problem that I see time and time again when, new students enroll or they book a call with me or on private coaching or whatever that might be. Offering too many things is usually always on the list of problems. So number one, do less, not more. And that can be counterintuitive, right? Because you start making the assumption, and perhaps it's just, I don't know why this is such a common problem. Maybe it's just human nature. We think that by adding more can help us make more, but usually it has the opposite effect. Software developers, I think, are renowned for this. They just keep feature stuffing the software until you get to a point you're like, I don't even understand what this thing does anymore. So number one, do less, not more. Find the one thing that's bringing in all the money and get rid of everything else. I'll give you a quick example before I move on to number two. I spoke with an SEO consultant recently who was offering, in fact, they weren't just providing SEO services, they were providing a number of different services, but he had more services. He was offering more services than he had clients. 21 different service offerings, and he had 5 clients. Absolute madness. So take a look at the services that you're providing. Find the one thing that's making all the money and get rid of everything else. Okay, point two, stop trying to be something you're not. I see this all the time, and it's actually really interesting. Sometimes I find it's quite, so I have to be completely honest, sometimes it makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable when I speak with someone who has this big fancy looking website and it looks like they're really well established and they've got a team and a physical location, and I find out it's just one person and they've got 3 clients. I don't know. I understand everyone wants to portray themselves as being professional. I get that. But I think there's a very fine line between doing that and trying to be someone you're not. This is a really sensitive subject, and I'm not here to try and call anyone out or provoke, but this is fairly typical in the SEO space especially, and I'm sure it's fairly typical in other spaces too. Trying to be someone you're not. Hey, we're Australia's #1 SEO agency, and you find out it's just James and his cat. and they've got 2 clients and they're really struggling. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a topic that I can come back to at some point. But yeah, I think it's worth mentioning. And before I move on to the next point, there's nothing wrong with being humble, and it doesn't mean to say that you need to present yourself as, I'm a soloist or a freelancer and I don't know what I'm doing. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think one piece of advice that I've given almost everyone that I've worked with, especially those at the very beginning, is that everyone starts at the beginning. Okay, and you don't. Do not advocate this whole fake it until you make it nonsense. I think there's nothing wrong with being honest and genuine, right? And I think if you are, then you'll attract the right people who will be more than willing to help you get started and gain momentum. Okay. And I think if anything, it can actually work for you rather than against you. Okay. Point 3, improve your service offering. I see all this talk and nonsense around scale, and automation and growth and hustle and grind and all of this sort of nonsense coming from people offering shit services. These are people who offer, $99 a month SEO. It's all low end churn and burn nonsense with really no care or interest around getting client results. And for me, I don't understand how anyone would even want to or operate a business like that, or how they could even enjoy it. But I'm all for scale and automation and growth and everything else. But start by addressing your internal operations and improving your service first before you start worrying about, amplifying and hiring and building a team and doing all of these other things. Improve your service offering, point 3. Point 4, niche down, specialize, and build a reputation. This is something that I've been talking about for a long time now, right? If you're operating as a generalist and you're just running around the internet saying, hey, we do SEO for anyone, then you're going to be doing that forever. And the likelihood of your efforts around marketing in particular are going to be, the likelihood around the success of your marketing efforts are going to be virtually zero, because you're not going to have a strong message, or you certainly won't be able to present a compelling offer. So niche down, specialize, and build a reputation. Now, let's get some level of pushback around this. Oh, John, I don't want to niche down and just work with plumbers. And I'm not saying that you should just work with plumbers. But if you did that for long enough, eventually you're going to build a reputation and you're going to start attracting plumbers, right? And that's essentially, that's an ideal outcome. Okay, point 5, work on your business, not in it. Now, this is advice that I used to get many years ago, and it used to give me the shits because people would say, John, you need to work on the business and rather than in it, and you need to hire and build a team. And I always found that advice really frustrating, because I was so caught up in fulfillment that I just didn't have the time. And I didn't have the time because I didn't have the money to hire someone. So there's this vicious cycle that you can find yourself in, right? And I always found that people giving that advice were just throwing around, sound bites and catchphrases. But honestly, it is so true. You must allocate time to work on your business rather than in it. Right. And this is a pattern that I've seen time and time again with SEO consultants, in that they're caught up 95% of their time, they're caught up in fulfillment. And when you're stuck there, you won't have, you won't have the opportunity or time to work on the business. Right now. So my advice here would be to allocate 1 day a week, or even 1 day every 2 weeks, where you say, right, I'm turning my phone off. I'm not answering email. I'm not going to be distracted by staff or clients or anything else. I'm going to allocate this 1 day, this one whole day, to work on my business, to fix all of these things that I know are broken. And, usually it's those things that you've known about for 6 months that you just keep putting off, right? Now, if you do that, say on a Friday, depending upon your situation and whether you're married and got responsibilities with family and everything else. But if you can do that on a Friday, you then might have 2 or 3 days where you can work the Friday, the Saturday and Sunday, or even in just the Friday and Saturday. So you get 2 days there rather than just one. But spend the time, allocate some time, put that time aside to work on your business rather than in it, because you'll be able to take care of those things that are causing bottlenecks and slowing you down and causing congestion within the business. Let's face it, it's real easy to say, oh man, I've got to get to that. That's a problem. And that problem keeps reoccurring. You just keep putting it aside, just get it done. Okay, point 6, learn to say no. I talk about this no end, especially within the training. I see numerous conversations going on in various SEO communities, groups, Facebook groups, Reddit, various forums and so forth. And let me give you an example of this. My client has requested, my client needs, or my client has asked for. Anytime I read that, bing, immediate red flag, because usually the conversation starts with that. And let's face it, if you're providing SEO services and I'm sure you've experienced those situations where a client has asked for something, whether it be, and usually those things are outside of scope of the agreement. But anytime I see conversations coming up like that, I immediately think, wow, okay, this is a problem, because as we all know, clients will push and pull in a million different directions. And if you keep saying yes to everything, then you're going to incur huge service debt. Right now, service debt, you'll get to a point where, okay, I can sort of make this time up and I'll be able to take care of this, but eventually you get to the point of bankruptcy where you just don't have enough time to be able to service to be able to take care of that service debt, right? That might be a little bit of an unusual way of describing, but it's so true, and that's something I learned from Sam Ovens working with him years ago. Service debt. Every time you say yes to something, you incur a little bit of service debt. And eventually that service debt accumulates to the point where you just can't pay it back. And this is where you end up absolutely swamped, and you lose control of campaigns, and you end up with cranky clients cancelling out. It just goes on and on and on. So learn to say no. Hey, this is what we do. This is who we do it for. And that's it. And anything outside of scope should be an immediate no. And that doesn't mean being rude to clients, right? If you've got someone who's asking for something that doesn't fit within the agreement, then you say, hey, sorry, we don't do that, but I can refer you on to someone else and they'll be able to take care of you. Okay, point 7, learn marketing. Wow, I'm going to upset some people by saying this, but most marketing agencies, especially at least for what I've seen in the SEO space, most SEO agencies suck at marketing. And this is the irony behind this. It almost makes me feel uncomfortable having to say this, but it's really true. And you've only got to browse Facebook, for example, and look at some of the ads that show up. It's usually along the lines of first page rankings. We're the cheapest. We've got all of these awards. Prospects don't give a shit. All they care about is, what can the service do for me? And I've learned I've learned a lot, especially over the last 12 months in terms of marketing and the importance around, having a clear message, positioning, and creating a compelling offer. And the short amount of time that you have to capture someone's attention, and all of these other things that I've touched on, especially around building reputation and doing less, not more, all fall into, are all part of that, right? So have a think about your marketing. Again, most SEO agencies really suck at marketing. And marketing doesn't mean, hey, we're going to rank first for SEO Sydney, or we're going to rank first for SEO New York. That's not marketing. That's just hope and guesswork that maybe by chance someone's going to click on a result, and who knows what sort of lead that we're going to get. And, anyway, I could talk for an hour about that topic, but you've got to learn marketing. This is something that I myself am doing proactively. And this brings me to my next point, right? Invest in training. I watched an Alex Hormozy video recently, whether you're a fan of his or not. I think that there's value in a lot of what he has to say, and I'm certainly smart enough to listen. But invest in training. Alex said something in one of his videos recently, and he said something along the lines of, I allocate at least 20% of my earnings towards training, right? Whether that's online training, books, classes, mentorships, courses, whatever it might be. 20% of my earnings, it was something along, I could be wrong with that percentage, but it was something along, a percentage of his earnings go towards self-improvement, business development, probably personal development, and some form of training. And that really made me stop and think about, okay, what am I doing? And this was a question that was asked during a get-together recently with members in the community. Someone asked me, how much money do you spend a year on training? And I thought, wow, that's an unusual question. But it's not the first time I've actually got that question, but it's definitely something to think about, right? Usually the people, the most successful people that you meet invest the most towards training. Right? It's really that simple. They understand the importance of having a coach or a mentor or investing in themselves in terms of personal development and some form of training. Now, I get a lot of pushback, and look, let's face it, there's a lot of shit courses around when it comes to SEO. Everyone's got an SEO course. I understand that. But Alex said something in his video, just to elaborate a little bit further. Alex said something in his video along the lines of, I'm going to put the money in, and I don't care if I lose the money. I'm putting it in because even if out of 100% of this training, I only get 5%, that's 5% that I've gained if I didn't do the training, right? So, this is much like, and I want to share an example with you, right? Think about how many business books, business development or personal development books you've read. I'm sure there have been some great books and there have been some shit books. So that doesn't mean that all books around business development, wealth creation, and personal development are all shit. It just means that maybe somewhere in that, $20 book, there's one chapter or one paragraph or even one page where you get an enormous amount of value that steers you in a new direction and plays a significant part in your overall success. And that's certainly been true for me, right? I got a cupboard full of books, and there are definitely books in there where I thought, okay, that one thing that I learned from that book really made a tremendous difference on my journey. So think about investing in training. And something else that I learned from Taylor Welch many years ago he said to me, whether you do the training or not, and I'm not talking about my own training here, I'm just talking about training in general, whether you do the training or not, you're going to spend the money, regardless. And I would hate to think that I made the decision not to invest $5,000 or something or $10,000 into training and be no better off, even after having spent the money on other nonsense, which we do anyway, right? We're going to spend the money regardless, and be 2, 3, or 5 years down the track, having spent the money and still be in the same position. Okay, next point. Point 9, stop chasing bright, shiny objects, right? This is a big one. There's a lot of talk at the moment around artificial intelligence and AI, and I can tell you, because I've been doing SEO for 21 years this year, I can tell you that this is nothing new, and I've seen this pattern repeatedly over and over and over again. Hey, there's this new thing. This could be the end of SEO, social media, Facebook. Oh no, Facebook ads, YouTube. Oh no, it's going to be the end of SEO. And I understand that the landscape is changing. The way in which people interact and behaviors around search are definitely being impacted by all of these other channels. But when it comes to chasing bright, shiny objects, that behavior has not changed. It's been the same the whole time, right? Oh, there's this new tool and it does this, and it's Surfer and it's Pop and it's Market Samurai and it's Build My Rank and it's, Link Varna and it's all of this other nonsense. These things come and go. It's really, really important that you stay focused and you don't lose that focus chasing bright, shiny objects, right? Business is actually quite hard and very boring. And this brings me to my last point, which I'll just jump to now. But my final point is here, do the work. Play the long game and have patience, right? Everyone seems to be in startup mode. And let's face it, when something is new, it's exciting. And you have high levels of enthusiasm and energy and everything else. But eventually the novelty of that thing being new and exciting wears off and you realize, wait a minute, there's a lot of work here. And this is something that I've found to be true for a lot of SEO consultants, right? In fact, there was a great saying that I heard recently, don't give up in the middle. And I thought, wow, that's unusual. I thought about it. Okay, no one gives up at the beginning. That doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, well, perhaps they do, but maybe it's just a fact of not getting started. But you don't give up at the beginning. And certainly if you've made it through the middle, you're going to be at the end, which means you've achieved success. But not giving up in the middle is typically where most SEO consultants find themselves. And that's because, they're not willing to do the work and they don't understand the amount of work that's involved in that. Business isn't necessarily always sexy, right? And this is something that I've learned. It's hard and it's challenging and you're going to have people saying no and you're going to have campaigns that fail and there's going to be all sorts of problems that you'll have to solve and deal with. And this is just not something that probably gets enough, it probably doesn't get spoken about enough. Everybody wants to think that you're just going to start an SEO agency or you're going to build, even for those that are established, it's all going to be, roses and rainbows, and it oftentimes isn't. There's a lot of hard work involved. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap it up with that. These are 10 points off the top of my head. I apologize for this video being as long as it is. I hope you've gotten value out of that, and perhaps maybe write these things down and stick them on the wall somewhere in the office and just remind yourself of these points, because these are points that I see a lot of SEO consultants struggling with. I see the same patterns over and over and over again, and there's probably another dozen more that I could add to the list, but these are the ones that I wanted to share today. Hope you've got value out of this, and I'll see you in the next video.